RC Underground Radio is your go-to podcast for everything RC.
Everything about Kirby's is awesome.
Especially the owner. He's so hot.
I could never find anyone like him on Tinder. For the record, I'm not on Tinder, just so you know.
I was kind of getting worried there.
More of a grinder guy.
Each episode features top-notch guests, industry leaders, and you, the racer.
Do you guys realize how much it costs to be friends with this dude?
So, grab your transmitter, buckle up, and join us on RC Underground Radio.
Say words.
Here are your hosts, Dave Brinkman and TJ Greer.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of RC Underground Radio. And I'm not going to waste a big, long introduction because I am so excited about this podcast today. This is one I reach out to these guys every year and say, hey, what do you think about coming on the show? This is the original theme of the show that we did for several episodes to start out RC Underground Radio. It was all based on one RC racing that was taking place at the RC Underground, which is my track. So I'm really excited to bring on to the show Brent Redlin and Todd Hodge. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had 3 years to think about the questions I would ask if I had you on here. And I totally respect it. I mean, I totally respect it. You guys took a great approach of let's just let the cars be the stars. You know, nobody kind of needs to know who's behind the scenes. Listen, we're going to put out great content, great product, and we'll let it speak for itself. And you have. I mean, there isn't anybody I talk to that doesn't say that it is amazing, the realism of the 1RC brand. It doesn't matter which car it is. It doesn't matter what your favorite is. They all handle like a real race car. Yeah. And that's always the amazing part. So
yeah. Well, that was one thing we really set out to do when we first started 1RC. Started with the midget, obviously, and we just wanted something that was realistic, RC, and just keep it as realistic as possible. I mean, some of the stuff we can't make exactly, but obviously because you have to make it RC, but really tried to keep that realism and then spread it, across from the midget to the sprint car to the EDM and then on down the line. So, and we didn't want to take the approach of, sometimes manufacturers will just have a car and they'll just put a body on it, and that just wasn't us. We had a lot of people even down the line as we do new cars. They're like, oh, you should do this car. Just take this car and put a body on it. And we're like, that's not what we're about. So we just tried to keep that realism, and that's honestly what a lot of people really love about it. Just like you said, I mean, that realism is just like, they're like, hey, I can't work on the big cars or do that anymore, or can't do that. So this is the next best thing,
Yeah, and it's evident because there are a lot of full scale racers that get an opportunity to try these cars, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is filling the void. Exactly what you said. This is filling the void because when I make a spring change, it does exactly what my late model or what my mod does.
Well, we really wanted to focus too on, one thing that people said is, well, they drive so different, and we focused on that as well. Like we didn't want them to all drive the same because that gets boring. If they put it down, works the same as all of them. Well, what fun is that? You just got a different car. So, the midget's a little bit more twitchy. The sprint car's a little bit more top heavy. Then you get into the modifieds and, it's just a whole different driving, style for each one of them. And you really see that if when you go to a big race or even local racing where you run, 5, 6 different classes, it's like, whoa, I got this car now. I got to readjust my drive a little bit. So
yeah, it makes it totally fun because, one guy might have an advantage because he's just won with the car in one division, and then he's finishing third or fourth and doesn't even make the A main in one of the other ones, right? It gives everybody a chance, and nobody has an edge. To what you said, it's not because if every car drove exactly the same, one or two guys are gonna, are just gonna do it.
Well, and it gets boring then. It's like, okay, now I got 5 or 6 cars, they all run the same. It's like, well, what fun is that, Right. I mean, one of the common questions we got, like when we did that high traction tire with the little nubs on it, everybody was like, when are you going to do that for the other cars? And it's like, we're not, because it's like, we want those to drive different. You put that tire on the other cars, they all run the same then,
Yeah.
So it's like, get that. And we kind of what you said, speaking to the guys that are in the big cars, they really like these cars. And that's really who we, as we started the company, we really focused on that customer. We really didn't go after the typical RC guy. We went after the guy that's the big car track, because that's kind of where One RC had started. Kind of give you a little history. Probably 8-9 years ago now, a guy named Terry Plummer, who a lot of people know. If you don't know him, look him up on Facebook. I mean, some of the stuff this guy does is just amazing. Guy's an amazing craftsman. And he called me and said, hey, I got this 3D printer and I got this idea. I don't know how to draw anything in CAD. Can you, I want to share this stuff with you, and let's draw one of these up, So we did, and we did it so that his printer could print it. And, it was pretty crude, but we got it, made it strong enough, and he built a little track in his basement, and I think we built up 2 or 3 of them, we ran them, and it was like, man, this is fun. This is it, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. He's retired. He does his little stuff. He doesn't really want to do anything. And he's like, you should do this. You should make this a business. And it was like, well, I don't know, it's just kind of, but then just kind of took a leap and went for it, so.
Yeah. And that kind of answers, 2 things. One, I think that's super cool that this thing actually originated down in a basement.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
History repeats itself.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could show you guys all the cars that Terry has done over the years. I mean, this guy comes up with, scroll through his Facebook page and you can see all the stuff that he's been. I mean, the guy he's just a craftsman. He's been like that. I've known him for 40 years. He's just always come up with the coolest stuff. He's got an eye for detail. And his big thing is the realism. Like, he doesn't want to build anything unless it's realistic. And, the first car, like I said, it was pretty crude, but then we refined it and, made it into what it is. And the midget was the first car we did, it's because that was kind of his passion. He really likes the midget cars, the big cars and that kind of stuff. So we kind of started with that one and then thought, okay, if we do this, we got to make this stuff compatible on down the line. So.
Right.
So yeah, it was, it just, like I said, it just an idea that he had and we kind of collaborated on it and made it into what it is. So
cool. So Todd, tell us about when you came into the One RC portion of the business.
It was about 3 months ago, right, Brent?
Yeah.
I've been really good friends with Brent for many years, and he would kind of tell me, hey, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm doing, and it was always fun to just hear the passion and watching Terry's stuff and seeing all the stuff he would build. Brent would call me up, but yeah, I'm coming out with this car, it should be pretty good, and then I'd watch the One RC stuff, and then he kind of grew it to the point that he said, hey, could you would you be interested in coming over here? I want to kind of take the business to the next level, and with your experience in the hobby industry, I was like, sure, let's give it a try. I'd worked for Horizon for 25 years. So I was there for quite a while, and I was just kind of like, well, wanting to try something new and something a little bit more exciting and kind of back off the rev limiter at Horizon because it's wide open there. And just be focused on one brand, which has been really exciting. So yeah, it's been about 3 months and it's been a blast so far.
Yeah, I can imagine your excitement because you're on something that just every year it just continues to grow and get more exciting. And then there's big events that are tied to these race cars all around the country. I mean, what is that like for you guys? I mean, you said that you were there, you were at the race in Colorado, but what's the feeling that hits you when you see a race like Colorado where people have come from all over the country, maybe even out of the country? I don't know if there was some folks.
Yeah, I think it was 9 states. Yeah.
Yeah. Racing your car, your concept that they would fly in, spend that money to travel. And they do it year after year, and then you see that picture of those race cars all the way around the track. Yeah. What kind of feeling does that give you of achievement?
I mean, it was pretty awesome. I mean, it was just to see it. I mean, I've seen it grow over the years. I mean, I used to live in Colorado and was there when that, the Chili Cup started, when Sean got it going. And, he had this dream of like, hey, we're going to do this big race. And it just kept growing and growing. And even on a weekly basis, I mean, when Terry first, did the track, he had it at a different facility. And then we approached Justin at Hobbytown, like, hey, Terry's, he didn't want to really do it anymore, do the track side, didn't have the lease for the building for 6 months. And Justin was like, yeah, I mean, I'll take a chance with this. So, he did it. He started it. We really supported him, and it just grew. I mean, there was even back probably a year. I mean, well, even at the first, I mean, it started being big. A lot of people started showing up at Justin's, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then Terry kind of got, the running the race program was just too much for him. He didn't really want to do it, and he handed it over to Sean. And, and Sean started that Chili Cup, and it just grew and grew and grew. And even on a weekly basis, I mean, they get 100, 120 cars at that track. And for, like I said, it grew. And then this race just like really blew up this year. And to see all those cars, I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it was very awesome. And to see what they've turned it into. But, it's kind of like I always say, a lot of people, even at the race are like, man, thanks for doing this and, really appreciate it. And for us, it's more about like, it takes, we do it, whatever, but it's like, for us, it's the customer, and to see the customer happy and having fun with it and just into it, and I think you guys have mentioned on the podcast that you guys have done, watched them over the years that you've done them. It's one of these kind of a niche side of the hobby, but it just keeps growing, and in RC typically, you get something that new comes out and it lasts for a couple of years and then everybody moves on to something else. And this one just keeps growing. Like it's not stopping. I think the Colorado race kind of showed that. Like, I mean, 310 cars. I mean, that was like, wow.
Yeah. Right.
It was humbling in a way, but exciting in a way that people have such passion for this. And that's what drives me and Todd to like, what's next and what do we got? What are we going to do, down the road? And I mean, there's, a lot of excitement from our side for sure. And a lot of, just like thanks to the customers, because we can't do it without the customers. We can build the cars, we can do all this stuff, but without customers, without support, without these people that are just really passionate with the cars, with the brand, it's just amazing. It really is.
What I, being involved in it, the years that I've been in and building a track focused on this particular vehicle. We don't race anything else down there. It's one RC. I don't look at it like other forms of RC. It's like, what kind of car can I go buy? Right? Mm-hmm. What's out there to buy? This is a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Like one RC is like a big family around the country.
Exactly.
But it's because you guys have set that standard. I've mentioned to you, and I try to thank you every time you do it, but like my track, Colorado, every one RC track around the country, if we post just the simplest thing, you guys share it.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like nobody would know about our big races because not as many people will see our social media as they see yours.
Yeah.
Right? You have tens of thousands that watch that. So when you share that for a track, that's huge.
Yeah.
And you guys might not even realize it, but it's huge.
Yeah. Well, and that's for us too. It's like we like to share it because we like everybody to see what everybody else is doing. And it's like, we want to see what you guys are doing. We want you to see what the Colorado guys are doing, what the guys in California, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, all that, because everybody kind of has their own little different take on it. They're doing their own little thing. And it's like, hey, these guys down here might be doing something that might work good for you guys, because it does not everybody in the United States is going to be the same of how they want to do it. So it's like, and I think that's really helped like with the track itself, like, hey, what works for the tracks, and what doesn't work. And if you're having guys break the cars, well, look at the track. Like, is there spots on the track where they're hitting hard? We'll put some foam on it, do some stuff. So we're wanting to share everything on what guys are doing, what race programs, when people paint up their cars, it's like we hear, man, they shared our car, and it's like, no, we want to do that. that's what we're all about. It's like, and like you said, it's that whole family atmosphere, 100%. I mean, that's how we run the business. It's all, and I told Todd that right off the bat when he came here. I was like, it's family oriented, and that's what we want to do, and that's what we want, because that's how our customer base is. So
yeah, well, and now that you brought this guy on, now you brought Todd on, I'm super excited. I mean, if the selling and the marketing and all that, it has, the strategy is worked till now, I can't even imagine where Todd's going to.
Oh, absolutely. Having Todd on board it was a huge deal for One RC. I mean, Todd's got so much experience in the RC industry, from the business side to the race side. I mean, he's been at the top. He's been at the top of the race scene. He's been at the top of the business scene, and just that wealth of knowledge coming over to a brand like One RC. I mean, it's got a very bright future for sure.
I think the key too, we're going to keep gushing on you, Todd, but I think the key is that he's obviously going to bring to the table the do's. Let's do this, let's do that. But as importantly, with the experience, he's going to bring the don'ts.
Yeah, 100%.
No, we're not going to do that. People have tried that before. That doesn't work.
We've really done that on the One RC side too. We get a lot of people that say, hey, you should do this option part and this option part and this and this and this. And it's like, you know what? There's 20 other classes of RC that you can go spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And that's not what this brand is about. We're about, you can go buy a car for $200, put a few parts on it if you want, and you're the same of what everybody else has got out there. And that's the key that makes this thing go. And not having promoters like Sean, yourself, to not let guys get out of control, because racers are going to be racers. They're going to try to do everything they can. I seen a lot of posts this weekend from Sean's, race at the Chili Cup, where people were taking pictures of their cars after tech, and they were like, wow, that's really excessive to tear them down. And it's like, when you got 310 cars, people are going to do whatever they can to do, and so you gotta really police it. I mean, and it's the same like option parts. I mean, we got 50 ideas that we want to do, but it's like, you know what? That's not what this brand is about. We don't want people to have to buy a car and go spend $200 or $300 more than the car is, and because that, kind of going back to, what we really seen at Hobbytown when we first started there. That store, Justin's store at Hobbytown in Westminster, it gets a lot of foot traffic every day. It's one of the bigger hobby towns. And what we seen when we started doing the racing is guys would buy these cars, they'd come back, they'd see the racing, and they were like, hey, that looks like fun. Because it's not intimidating. The cars aren't just flying around the racetrack. Guys are having fun and laughing. They would literally go up and buy a car, find a spot on a table, take the car out of the box, plug the charger in, charge the battery, and they race that night. And it was like, we would see that 2-3 times a night, and it was like, that was like, almost shocking in a way. Because, I've been doing it for 40 years. You just don't see that in RC,
right.
Especially in the racing side. And we started seeing that, and it became more and more and more. And that's when the program really started growing. It was, 30 guys and 40 cars. And in 3 or 4 weeks, it was like 50 guys and 100 cars,
Right.
And, some of those people, they're like, this ain't for me. So they do something else. But you just have that continuous growth, and it just keeps going and going and going. And I think a lot of that comes to, we keep the cars, pretty stock. We have a few little things you can do, but making it so you don't have to spend $200, $300, $400, to upgrade it and make it, it's like, no, you stay with the One RC parts and you run what everybody else has got. You show up to the track, it's the same as everybody else has got, tune on it, get your driving right, and you can be right up front,
Yeah, for sure. And I've had multiple times downstairs where guys who race RC come and they buy a car and they win that night.
Yeah.
Like,
well, one thing me and Todd talked about that was so impactful from last weekend at the Chili Cup, we had a couple guys come up and they were like, I just seen this thing, just out of the blue. And I haven't, I raced RC cars 25 years ago, and I got out of it because it was too expensive. And I love this. Like, it's great. It's not expensive, and I don't have to work on it all week long. Or, we had an 8-scale guy come up. He's like, I ran 8-scale back in the day. And it was like, man, I just couldn't afford it, but I can afford this, this is fun, And he's like, I don't have to work, I get a race on Saturday. I might wrench on it one night, but if not, I wrench on it at the track when I get there. I can go do family stuff, so it's like, that's what we really, we really try to promote that. We like, hey, we don't want you, we don't want you spending all this money on this stuff. The cars are expensive enough, and We just want to make a cool product, inexpensive, that you can have fun,
Yeah.
And that's where, like I said, that's where we really started. When we focused on the big car racer, when we first started, it was a lot of guys that would buy these cars and they would set up a track in their garage or in their basement, kind of like you did or what Terry did. And, we had a lot of them contact us and they're like, oh, this is the greatest thing. We got 10 guys from the neighborhood come over. Everybody is in the garage. We're drinking beer, we're barbecuing. And it's like, we used to do that back in the day, but we don't do that anymore, So it's like bringing that back. Just, people are just excited about it,
Yeah. So one of the coolest things that you guys do is I love how you keep everything you hold your cards tight, right?
Yeah.
I've learned I'd never play poker against you guys. Never going to the table with you guys. But the coolest thing is when the buzz starts about the next launch. What's it going to be? Everybody knows. Oh, it's going to be this. Oh, no. For sure it's going to be this. And then you guys come out like totally the left side. Like, whoa, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But that alone just it's like the season, and I don't know if the season's nobody knows when that season's coming, but when we start getting a feel for it, it's like, oh, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. And that's the same, it goes back to the same thing of, if you release the, if we came out with 5 or 6 cars every year, it just gets boring, and people don't, people spending their hard earned money to buy these things. And it's like, if you have to buy, everybody's going to want to buy the new stuff. So it's like, if you come out with 2 or 3 or 4 every year, it's like, that gets really expensive. We just look at it as guys they just don't want to spend that kind of money. They got other stuff to do. So 1 a year, that's good, and it's also, it's, from a company perspective, it's a lot of money to tool those cars up too. So, it's, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, you got to stock inventory. So it's not just on the customer side of buying stuff. It's a whole lot of money for one RC to put out for that too. So,
yeah. And again, not going too far in the weeds, but I would imagine that it's a pretty lengthy process from concept, proof of concept, and then actually getting it designed and then getting it here, getting everything shipped over, that timeline and how you guys strategize that. That's, and that's a challenge. And you got to, you're dealing, unfortunately, we have to get everything made in China, just to try to get, keep the costs low and this now, which, pretty much all the RC stuff is. But, there's a lot of challenges there. You're halfway around the world, language barriers, all that stuff that you deal with, and just the time, that it takes. Just the shipping time alone, is a long time. So and it varies on products, depending on what you do and stuff. If it's like a ground up design, like the last Super Modified was, that's a very lengthy process, so it's, a lot of, and we've come out with a few products where people have said, oh, somebody else did that and you just did it because they did it. And it's like, well, we've had that in the pipeline for a long time. It doesn't, we just don't go into the shop and say, okay, we're going to do this and it comes out tomorrow. It's like, no, that's like months and months of that was already planned way ahead of time. So, yeah. And I'm sure there's challenges on like, okay, like you say, you got production time. So at some point you got to say, okay, this is how many cars we're going to produce of this line.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a lot of sleepless nights, maybe, or not. I don't know.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
It's not as much as for us as it is for some companies. Todd can speak to that. Obviously, coming from Verizon, it's a whole lot bigger. But just even for our small little company, it's a lot of moving parts. So
yeah. And I'm sure, Todd, coming into this business, even though you've just been around it, about 90 days or so, you have to be impressed with the groundwork, the foundation, where it is, current already.
Yeah, I called up Brent, I don't know what it was, about a month ago, Brent, and I was like, hey, why don't we go to the Chili Cup? And he's like, I don't know, not too sure. Maybe. I'm like, well, I'd like to go check it out, and get really just into the cars. And next day, Brent's like, I kind of like that idea. And then the next day came, he's like, all right, I bought my ticket, buy yours, get your ticket. Nice. And I was like, oh, shoot, I guess we're going, right? So we go there, right? And, going out on the track and, practicing, Brent's helping me dial it in, everybody's super helpful there. But the biggest thing that blew me away outside of just the fun racing was how many people came up and thanked us for the product and just said, thank you for having this product. And me and Brent were like, well, thanks for supporting us. I mean, without you guys, we could never do this. And everybody was just so appreciative. And I worked with Team Losi back, since 1999, and I never had so many. I had people say, hey, thanks for coming out with this car. I'm having a blast. But in 2 days, having, God, Brent, there must have been 30 or 40 people. It seemed like, thank you. And you're just like, and when people are sitting there saying that to you, you're like, wow, you really have something special here, right? People are really, they're just enjoying it. I met a father and son there, and they're like, yeah, we got into RC racing because of One RC. I'm like, how long have you been doing it? He said 3 years, and we come here every week and we practice and race, and it's just, he said, what did he say? He said, small cars, big emotions,
Perfect. That's a T-shirt right there. Carpies, like, if you're listening, we need a T-shirt.
Yeah, but I mean, here's like, and you just look at like the father-son relationship, being able to go there and go race with your son or go race with your dad, like people don't realize like how important that is, right? Like when you're doing it with your dad, you don't realize it until 10, 15 years down the road. And you're like, wow, that was a really special time for me, right?
Yep, I'm in that line.
Yep, we all been there.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because my dad, bought me an RC car back in '78. Was the first Associated 10 car.
Yeah,
and but they weren't. I mean, that was an expensive venture, but even way back then.
Yeah.
And you can get into this, as you say, like myself. I've been into it. My kids are older and moved on, but my son, like, he'll come in from Dallas for some of my bigger races. He wants to race. I get to have that relationship with him.
Yeah.
What I love to see is it's at a price point where a dad, I have several friends and dads where it's, they got one for their son, they got one for their daughter, they've got a bunch of cars, and they can come and race all together, and they don't even have the money invested that he would have in one car.
Yeah.
In one like really good 10 scale, like top of the line car.
Absolutely.
And he's at my track or Colorado or Murph's track, anywhere around the country, the same situation is happening, and they're having way more fun than he would ever have by himself.
Yeah.
I just had over the weekend, there was a father with his two kids. I keep some, extra cars, like, here, you guys are racing. And those kids went out and won their first races. They were thrilled.
That's awesome.
Dad's racing. He's never raced either. Put them in the asphalt late models with the dimple tires.
Yeah.
Because they're a little easier to run.
A little easier to drive, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they just took to it. And, the one boy, Abel, he had never really raced an RC car. He won the main.
That's awesome.
And he's just listening to us as we were quarter marshaling and saying, just keep it between the navigational beakers.
Yeah.
Don't touch the walls. Yeah. Keep it straight. Let other people make mistakes, and let's see what happens. And here he comes out. He wins the race. So,
Introducing Papa Willie's Traction Tonic, the ultimate solution to boost your grip and speed on dirt, carpet, or pavement. Papa Willie's gives you the traction you need to leave the competition in the dust. Just apply and watch your car stick to the ground like never before. No more spinning out, just pure relentless traction. Get Papa Willie's Traction Tonic and put the pedal to the metal. Available online. Visit papawillies.com today. Papa Willie's, where traction meets action.
Is your ride as exciting as a soggy sandwich?
Does your wardrobe scream,
I'm not trying?
Turn heads with Carpies, the place for custom wraps, apparel, and all things awesome. Want to look cooler than your neighbor? Want a wrap that makes your car the talk of the town? Want apparel that screams,
I'm not basic?
Carpies has you covered. Carpies, custom wraps, apparel, and more.
Because who wants to be boring?
Visit Carpies. Wrap your world. Wear your swag. Visit Carpies.com today.
Well, that's one thing me and Todd have talked a lot about is, trying to get, what can we do to get more kids into this? Because that's one thing that, at the Chili Cup race was a good example. Like there was a lot of kids there.
Yeah.
And it was good to see that. And they were racing. And I know like I seen a post from Matt Murphy where he helped one of the kids, and tried to watch for them kids and stuff. And it's like, I think that's kind of a duty as us, elder statesmen kind of in the RC thing is like, hey, let's help these kids. Let's get them to have fun, want to come back, get their dad into it, that kind of stuff. That's really important. So we've talked about that, like, hey, what can we do to try to bring that back? And to your point, like the cost, that definitely helps because,
that's the biggest box. Yeah, you guys check the biggest box.
Yeah.
Like everything else supports it, but that's the biggest check mark.
Yeah, get it where it's affordable, where, because if a dad and a kid are going to do it, well, they got to buy 2 cars, and that's, $400, that's a lot of money, so it's like, and, you're going to want to buy more stuff, you're going to probably want to upgrade your radio, and you're going to want to do this, and you're going to want to buy tools and all that. So it's like, it's not just the cars, it's the, the few things that go with it too, but just keeping that fun factor. And I think that's where, we've really tried to get tracks focused on, making sure that they keep the racing and keep the car. Don't get the cars out of control. I really harp on that. And I know, because I'm a racer, I love to go fast. Everybody likes to go fast. But I tell the story, like when we first started racing these cars at Terry Plummer's track, where he had it in a building, there was a good group of us there, and we ran the midgets. And the first thing we did, we all wanted them to go faster, so we put the 5 cells in them, and they were faster. But, it just didn't seem like we could race that good. Like
Right.
You were racing, but the cars were just a little bit too fast, had a little bit too much squirt out of the corner. So I talked to all the guys one night into like, hey, I'll bring 4 cells. Let's everybody put 4 cells in, and let's run a whole round of racing and see how it is. We ran a 50-lap main event with 10 cars. 8 cars finished on the lead lap after 50 laps. And
Awesome.
I kid you not, everybody got off we grabbed our cars. Everybody was smiling, laughing, like, oh my gosh, that was the most fun. And it's like that, you got to capture that and put it in a bob. That's what you got. That's what you got to get to, because we've seen a lot of dealers, a lot of tracks that have kind of let it go. They get crazy with it. They put the fastest motor, the biggest lipo they can do in it. And it makes the cars so fast that when people come in and watch them, they're intimidated.
Yeah.
They're very intimidated. And like I said, I've done it for 40 years. And when I went to a local track and watched, like, say, an off-road race, and you watch some of the really good guys and they're flying around there, you're like, this ain't for me. And that's like the death nail. It's like you want those people like at Justin's track where they walk in and they're like, I can do that.
I could do that.
I can do that, and there's other guys out there kind of doing this, and it's like, I can go buy one of those. They come and have fun, it's like, and that's where we really tried to focus on is like, keep that level, you don't need to be super fast. It's all about, if you can get side-by-side racing, you'll come off the driver's stand smiling and having a better time than if you're just out there trying to break a track record,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing with the cars too is they're durable.
Yeah.
Durable.
And and that's one thing we've, sometimes, if you hit stuff hard enough, things are going to break, and it's kind of me and Todd always talked about, even when we worked at Horizon together, it's kind of this race to the bottom in RC in some areas, and I always say it's like these, some customers, they want a car that goes 100 miles an hour. You can run over it with your passenger car and it costs $100. That's what they want, and that, unfortunately, that's produced out there type thing, but these cars, they're a little bit more fragile, if you hit hard, if it's cold weather, that kind of things can break, and we always kind of tell guys, well, if you hit stuff hard enough, the thing's going to break, but for the most part, they're pretty durable, but it's really just, kind of tuning in your driving, tuning the car. And if you keep them where they're not so fast, you're not hitting the wall as hard. It's like slow them down a little bit, control that a little bit, and guys will have more fun,
Right. Well, I can tell you a quick durability story of these cars. So one of them launched. It's in my basement, so I've got my HVAC down there too, right? Mm-hmm. Launched in the air, hit my downpipe, cracked the PVC. Car was fine. Nothing happened to the car.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It was just corner marshaled it, and he went on and finished the race. So
that's
it's
awesome.
It's more durable than an HVAC system.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to use that in your marketing.
Yeah.
More durable than
absolutely.
I mean, and that's what's great, is we kind of kid about all that kind of stuff, but that's a big deal because that's people get into they buy a big 10 scale car and they're into it and they can afford to do it. What they forget about is the upkeep.
Yeah.
And they forget about all the breakable parts and the time it takes to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody can buy a 1RC car and you can have a very nice backup of parts.
Mm-hmm.
And you still haven't really spent money.
Spend a ton of money. Exactly.
I'll be honest. There's people spending more money on 2 packs of batteries.
Yeah.
Than it does for a whole RC car.
We've also tried to do that as well. Like, we come out with different iterations of the cars. Like we had the Sprint car, and then we have the Sprint car 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. Every time we do one of those iterations, when customers send us feedback, like, hey, I had problems breaking this, or this track had problems breaking this, or, this is an issue or that's an issue. We try to, address each one of those when we come out with one of those cars. Stuff that's sensible. I mean, if we get one customer says this is what was wrong, it could be a one-off thing. But we really try to watch that, and we really try to, to do that. And we make running changes on parts a lot too. Like somebody has an issue or there's a prevalent issue out there, we try to adjust that and make, so it's not, so, that's another thing, like, being intimate with the customer and sharing all that stuff and being, one-on-one with them in a way. It's like you get that feedback from them and that it's honest. Like, hey, I had this problem. It's not a big deal, but hey, you might want to look at this. And we try to address that on new cars. So
sure. All right, Todd. So you got to race the cars in Colorado. Mm-hmm. Which one did you do the best in, and which one did you feel most comfortable in?
I did the best in sprint. Somehow I managed a third. The fact that I made the main, I was pretty excited. Yeah, I got third in that. Basically just stayed out of the wrecks. That was the key. I really love the asphalt mod. That car is just so cool looking. And just the corner speed it has and just how fast it is. It was good. Then I ran asphalt-based late model. That was fun. You could just feel the bigger, heavier body rolling around, but it was good. I was telling Brent, I got all packed up for the race. I said, Brent, I got all my clothes and all my RC stuff in one OGO bag. Like back in the day, like I'd go to a race, I'd fill up 2 OGO bags and have a suitcase full of clothes, right? And I'm like, getting extra baggage and stuff. And I'm like, this is so simple, And
yeah,
I mean, I got a few parts from Brent, but I had everything I needed,
Yeah.
It was just simple, easy, and I'm telling my friends about it, and they're like, dude, we got to build a track in Southern California. We need to get a track going. This sounds like so much fun. And these are people that have been in RC for, decades, and they're saying that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome, right? And I don't know if Brent touched on it, but people that have gotten out of RC because it got too expensive and then stumbled across one RC and said, hey, I'm doing RC again because this is the best bang for every dollar I spend. This is the cheapest form of racing, and I can have fun with it.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear that multiple times over the weekend.
Yeah.
What's been great here in Milwaukee is there's an RC drift track that opened. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, from him listening to the show and just kind of checking out, he's like, I think on Wednesday nights, I'm going to put foam down and see if I can't get a 1RC following. Mm-hmm. It didn't take long.
Yeah.
It was about a month, and he's selling out cars as fast as he can get them.
Yeah.
And he's got a great following. He went out and he bought a scoring system. But like he said, I mean, these cars will fit right on my track. The track I have for drifting, I just put foam around the outside of it, and now we're running this big oval. And so even for tracks, it helps them. And you see that all over the internet too. You see tracks that we have another one, 608. They run full size 10 scale, all those divisions, but then they just have a little shorter oval that comes in through the infield. And they're running 1RC cars, and I think 1RC is probably their most supported class. So it's helping some of these tracks that maybe would have had a problem staying open, because 10 scale comes and goes, and it gets expensive and all that. Where this is the consistent line where people will come and they'll pay their entry fees and not think about them because they don't have so much in the car, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was also one thing we did when when me and Terry kind of first set out, with the idea of Terry set out with the idea of this, and then we kind of, expanded on it, was the size. The size was a big consideration because, he built a track in his basement, and he's like, he wanted to keep that 18th scale size, because he has a lot of die-cast cars, and he always just loved that size. And we really made him that size, and we started thinking about it more and more. And, it's just too expensive for building space, to have anything really bigger than that, because it's like you got to have a bigger area. A 10 scale track, that's a lot of square footage, and that's a lot of money,
Sure.
So the littler cars, you can do the littler track. Like Justin at Hobbytown, he has that one small area back there, and they set it up. They do all the RC. They host 100 cars, on a weekly basis. Another track is like Cycle Arts in Fresno, California. He puts the track up in his shop. Matt down at Race City, he's got a building that's kind of purpose built for that. But even the size helps him, because it's like he can get a smaller footprint. It's not crazy rent. Then you can actually afford it.
Yeah.
And even guys, even for small little traveling tracks like Dusty Smith down in Florida, he's got that track, and he takes it to the big races and stuff. And it's a big deal, keeping that size small where you can do it. And one of the comments that Todd made, which at the race, and we kind of laughed about it, was, you always think about, well, I'm going to do a track, so I got to buy this carpet or I got to buy this foam. Hobbytown in Westminster, it's just the square foam tile or the square carpet tiles. Like it's the same carpet that they walk on and everything, and it's like, yeah, we're racing on it, so it's like, you don't have to have this, you don't have to have the crazy expensive ozite. You don't have to have a special thing here, a special thing, it's like you can put a track pretty much anywhere,
Yeah.
It's got the grip, you can't put it on slick concrete. They don't work good on that, but keeping that size, small like that, it's helped tremendously. A lot of the tracks, for sure.
Yeah, I've even seen it. Southwest, they're running them on dirt.
Yeah. There's a dirt track up in, I think it's in Albuquerque or in that area.
El Paso. I know.
El Paso. They've got they're the Whiskey Bend Speedway or whatever. Yeah, they're doing them on dirt, and it's hard packed. And we get a lot of people ask us, can they work on dirt? And it's like, well, they're not meant for dirt. There are people that run them, but it's got to be hard packed, smooth, that type of thing. But
high bite.
But yeah, just keeping that small footprint, it definitely helps, for sure. And kind of one thing we've done, since we started, Todd can speak to this as well, probably more than I can, is, one thing, we get a lot of requests for people, hey, well, can you sponsor me? We want to do sponsorships. And that's one thing that 1RC does not do. We never will do, because there's nothing more frustrating than showing up. There's a sponsored guy. You think he's got this trick stuff or he's got that. It's like, and I think Matt Murphy maybe spoke to it on your podcast once. Is like, There are no sponsored guys. Nobody's got anything different than anybody else. You show up, this is what you got. And guys like Sean, the tracker, there. That's why he has that big long rule book, is because we're going to keep this, to a T, is you're going to run the stock stuff. We're not going to get out of control. We're not doing that. And I really think stuff like that, Sean, yourself, all these other dealers and tracks around the country, keeping this stuff, you got to run 1RC stuff. I mean, we appreciate it, obviously, because it's, you use the 1RC stuff, but it just controls it, keeps it in line. And I really think that's what makes it grow,
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring that up, because even though we all know each other and we've all kind of talked all the different tracks through social media and that, but that's like become the consensus. Like any of us that have raced other RC, that's where we've seen it implode.
Yes.
It's Motor of the Week Club, it's Battery of the Week Club, and we've all kind of said, unwritten rule, you keep the rules the same. And we all share them, and nobody's looking to do something really wild. No, keep it at center, because we've all experienced the other side of that.
Exactly.
Right? So here's our chance. Here's our do-over. Like, in a lot of hobbies, you don't get a chance to go, it's just gotten out of hand, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Not with this. It's like 1RC has given us that RC do-over to say, let's do it right this time.
Do it right and keep it right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what we got an email the other day. Well, we get them a lot, but we got one the other day, and me and Todd both said the same thing when we read it. The guy wanted, when are you guys doing foam tires? Never. We will never do a foam tire for these cars. That is the death of RC, I mean, carpet oval. I mean, I love carpet oval, 10 scale carpet oval. It was the funnest thing. It was fastest, but it's like, if you didn't know what you were doing on tires, you were out to lunch.
Yeah,
it's like not happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Cider sauce. When we went up there to Denver, Brent's like, yeah, you just take a white rag and wipe your tires down. Right. And it was just so nice. And then obviously testing the tires aren't growing because of the chemicals you're putting them on, and you're just wiping them down with, just a wet rag. And it was like, at the end of the day, you felt okay. You weren't breathing all those darn fumes,
Right.
You didn't have to have a doctorate in chemistry to figure out, how to dial your rubber in, your tires in. I mean, it was just, again, simple.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. Everything you guys do is great. You got to be excited, Todd. He's so excited coming into this deal.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I wish I had a track closer to me, which we're working on. It's just a blast.
Yeah. That's one thing too. Like we were talking about venues and things like that. Like I'm hooked up with a group that has venues around all the states, and as we're doing this one race coming up in April, it's like all the other venues are like, hey, what's that on their calendar? And they're like, oh, this is what these guys are doing. They're like, well, we want them to come to our place and do that. And so, we're just doing foam squares, just like there'd be at a gym, in a exercise place. And we can just pick that thing up and put it down wherever. Yeah, we
Yep. And there again, the size of the cars, you don't have to have a gymnasium to do it in. It's like you can have a smaller area to do that in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I won't ask you what's coming up because, first of all, I wouldn't want to know because, like I said, that season of when something new from 1RC launches is like so fun. I wouldn't want you to take that away from us. Just guarantee us, just assure us that there's more to come.
Oh, there's definitely more to come. I mean, it's part of the reason I'm here. I mean,
nice.
This guy over here, Brent, he's been a one-man show. I mean, obviously Terry's been helping him. Brent's a workhorse, and I'm just stoked to be involved with it, to help him and just share the passion. There is more stuff coming. I mean, the industry wants more stuff. They want to see what's exciting and what's next. And I mean, we've had a few, small little releases with the conversion kits. We had those on display at the race. People were, nerding out on them. We actually even had a few of the mini sprints there. I don't know if they raced, but they were in the parade. So I mean, those came out like 2 weeks ago, and people already had them done up. So it was cool to see that. Next year, it's going to be the asphalt sprint. When we go back to that race, that's one class I want to race. I want to race the asphalt sprint.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be a big class for sure. And that's kind of why, a lot of people have asked, like, we've gotten a couple comments like, wow, you're doing all these conversion kits. And it's like, well, one thing we have noticed with the 1RC and, kind of complements the whole brand and kind of the wide range of cars is there's certain areas of the country that, some areas they only run the dirt cars. Some areas only run the pavement cars, or some areas only run sprint cars. Some only run the late models, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like you got an offering to kind of cover all that. And doing the conversion kits, like the midgets, they're still out there racing, but that class isn't quite as big as it used to be, obviously, because you come out with enough classes, some of those classes go away. So that, like the mini sprint, perfect example, like, let's take the midget. Everybody's got a couple midgets laying around. You can still leave your midget, but now you can take one of them and put a mini sprint kit on it. Go have a little fun, a little bit different. The asphalt sprint, I mean, that car with the big tires, the new little tire in the front, I mean, it's got the pins on. I mean, that's going to be a fun class. It's low to the ground. It's got some big meat tires on it. It's going to be a go-getter class for sure. So, I mean, the testing we did with that, Sean did a lot of the testing up in Colorado with the tires and with that car and stuff, with the conversion kit. And he said, that is going to be a fun car. He said, that's going to be a good one. So,
yeah. And I really applaud that you guys did the conversion kits because you nailed it. Like everybody that bought a dirt late model probably has 2 dirt late models.
Yeah.
And if you would have come out, and you came out with an old, its own asphalt late model, which is awesome. But if you go, oh man, I wish I would have held out. Well, you don't want anybody holding out. You want them to buy cars. Yeah. So now and it worked for me. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I got 2 dirt late models, and the one kind of needs some updating anyway. So here we go. I'm just going to buy the kit. I'm going to buy some fresh tires, And man, I put that. So my first asphalt late model was a conversion. Oh man.
Yeah. Well, the truck
I immediately fell in love.
Yeah, the truck has been crazy popular. I mean, people. I mean, we knew it would be because people just like the trucks.
Yeah.
But doing it where you have an asphalt late model, you can put it on. You can take a dirt late model and put it on there. You just need the parts, the bumper, and the cage pieces, and the tires, and you can do that. So it's like that's been a huge one. I mean, that's been a very popular vehicle. But it's, there again, it's just, doing those little, like, hey, if like you said, everybody's got a couple extra cars, or the parts or whatever, so it's like you do those conversion kits, and it's a two-pronged approach for us. Like, it's a lower cost for the customer. They can change one of their other cars to it. And, to do a full car of that, I mean, there again, from one RC's perspective, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of inventory. Takes a long time to get that stuff, but we can come out with a conversion kit pretty quick.
One of the things we pride ourselves on is we get a lot of people that know nothing about this hobby, and they, through YouTube, they stumble on our channel. And so, this could be the first time a lot of people are learning about 1RC cars. So the one thing I just want to back up on, so those people listening understand, it's not just the car. Like when you get the box, you get the radio.
Everything.
You get everything. The car's ready to go.
Charger.
You even get here's what blew me away. You even give the batteries that go into the radio.
Into the radio,
Who does that?
That's what we wanted. Like, hey, you should, because, one of the number one questions in RC is, does it have everything I need in the box to run it? And it's like, yes, it has everything,
Even a way to charge the batteries.
Even a way to charge the battery. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, when I got my first one, that's how I had to start. I didn't have a charger. I didn't, my charger was 40 years old. So, I wanted to get a charger so I could, but the day I had the car, I was excited. I wanted to run it, and I could.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Any parent who's listening and saying, oh, this might be a fun thing for my son or my daughter to do, just know when you go out and buy the car and you give it to them, that when you're waiting for that big excitement, where it's going to be better with 1RC than anything you put under a Christmas tree or a birthday present, is that the kid wants to open it up and use it.
Yeah.
And with everything else, you go, well, sorry, Johnny. Yeah, we still have to get this or this or this. No, when they open that box, you're going to throw batteries in in there, and they're out in the driveway, or they're down in the basement, or they're right there in your living room, and they're going to be able to enjoy this thing. And because a lot of times, like we talked about, different items that you could buy that you think you envision it's going to be that, it ends up being a disappointment and a frustration. Not with 1RC. When you open up that box, you're racing.
Yeah. Well, and the realism too, like you touched on earlier. I mean, that was obviously one of the biggest things when we first started, is we got to keep these things realistic as possible. I can't tell you how many times we get emails that people are like, man, I just love to take my car apart. Like, it's just fun to work because it's got the chassis all there, and the rear end and the radius rods and all this stuff. It's like, this is just like a real, just like I'm working on a real car,
Yeah.
As we get older, unfortunately, we got to have our magnifiers on. But
yeah. Well, what's funny is, my son raced real cars. He's raced midgets and late models and trucks and all this different stuff, some ARCA and all that stuff. And me, it skipped a generation. My dad was great mechanically. My son is great mechanically. Yeah, I can't hold two screwdrivers and chew gum. All 14 years of racing, I've learned more about a race car from my 1RC car than I ever did on a full-size car.
Yeah. Well, like you said, a lot of the setup changes that you make, it's exactly like what a real car is. I mean, you don't, obviously you don't have the tuning and the shocks and all that stuff, but the majority of the basic changes, we hear that from a lot of people. They're like, if I need the car to do this, I can do what I did on my big car, and it works. It's like, so that's really cool, and just the simplicity. I think what we really see too is like the big race car guys, they actually appreciate the simplicity of these even more, because you get into a big race car, and it's really technical now in those cars, with the shocks and all the stuff they got, and then they can come down to this and they're kind of like take a breath, like, whew, I can take a breath and just kind of have fun with this. I don't have to be a rocket scientist to get, figure out my shocks, that type of thing. So that's been, I mean, I came from, a big race car background as well, worked in IndyCar for a while, a little bit in NASCAR, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, when you do that, it's like, it's pretty serious, so doing this, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is fun. And they love it. I mean, when Terry first started, I would bet probably 80% of the guys, maybe 70% of the guys, they were real race car guys. Like that's what they did. They raced big cars, In the wintertime, they didn't have nothing to do, so they'd come run the RC cars. And that's where, it just keeps growing from there. And even at the race this weekend, the Chili Cup, I mean, there was probably, 10 guys that raced big cars there, or more. So they're still doing it. So that's what's really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a smile on my face through this whole interview. Actually, ever since I got the email that, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
This interview has been everything and more that I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
I know, Todd, you said, we probably had about 40 people come up and thank us for these cars. Well, now it's 41.
Yeah.
Because just thank you. It's brought me back together. I raced with guys back in the 70s and 80s, and we hadn't seen it. We keep in a little touch. They bought cars and they came back racing. These are guys I was in their weddings. They were in my wedding back in the day. They were my neighbors, and we lost touch. And through one RC, cars that you guys developed is rejoining relationships and fellowship. The fellowship that we have with these cars, that would be a whole nother show. And we've talked about it. You said you watched the show, Brent, and we've talked about it many times. It's the fellowship of RC is what's the magic of it. And your cars make people who have been out of the hobby come back into it. People who've never been in the hobby to come into it. And everybody gets together and they're sharing something that's so special.
Yeah.
And I just hope, this is why I was glad I had you guys on here, because I give this message. I just hope that sinks into you guys. That you get,
100%.
That you've really done something special and be super proud of it.
Yeah. Well, and having, like I said, it's a passion. And having Todd on board, it's been a huge benefit. And it's, there's a lot to come with that. Todd can kind of talk to some of the stuff that he, seen at the race, and it's just a different vibe, and that's kind of one thing he brought up at the race is just a different vibe, and that was cool.
Yeah. The family aspect. There was girls racing over the weekend, and doing really well. There was that one girl. I think she was maybe even in the sprint main. I don't know. I'd be like, one of the mains, I was just like blown away. Like, wow, this is awesome. And another thing I want to touch on too is this, like, I have a 23-year-old son, and I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old son. My 10-year-old son, he's went racing with me. My 23-year-old could really care less. I could probably have my 13-year-old son wrench on a car, no problem, because he understands turn to the right, it tightens it, turn to the left. If I try to get my 23-year-old to turn a wrench, he would be like, wait, which way do I turn it? But like, my point in saying that is, right, my 13-year-old kind of identified it. He's mechanical, right? So like, who knows where he's going to go with that? My 23-year-old, right, he wants to be a scientist, right? He's not into the wrenching, the mechanic side of it. Super sharp kid, but not into it. But like, rewind, 35 years, I was that kid at the track wrenching on my cars, turning wrenches, learning what a differential is, learning shock fluid and fluid dynamics, and right, like, it kind of just set me up for a career path. And I was thinking about that over the weekend. Like, you see these younger kids out there racing them and tuning in on them. And I was talking to a few of them, and I'm like, man, who knows where you could take this? You could take this into full scale racing. You could take this into mechanical engineering. Brent, he's made a career out of this, through all his experience. And that's something that's really special to see, 10, 15 years from now. Do we see that kid that we saw at the Chili Bowl this year? He's now an engineer, and he's working for a NASCAR team, or he wants to work in the RC industry. That's the cool stuff that I think One RC's really kind of brought to, because to go race 10 scale off road, it's thousands of dollars. Who has thousands of dollars to go spend and go figure it out? There's some people that do, but you can go pick up a One RC car and start sawing at the wheel and having fun and tuning on it.
Yeah. And if you could afford the thousands of dollars, now you can go out and buy multiple cars, and your son can have his friends come. You know, that's what we do at the track. We just have enough cars. We call our series for the kids class RC Next, and
that's
NXT.
awesome.
I like that.
And the reason, and it's exactly to what you said, Todd. We're not saying that they're going to be the next big, jump into a different class of RC. We're saying you're going to learn some skills about setup and science and inertia and all these different things that you didn't know about before. And like Todd said, you don't know where that's going to go, what they're going to do with that.
Exactly.
So that's cool if we're setting that foundation.
Yeah. See, and that's there again, that kind of back to the whole mindset of One RC. It's that family based thing, and get those kids in and get them off their phones. Get them off their phones, get them into this. Have fun, running around with the other kids. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad got me into it. I look forward to that. There was other kids at the track with me, and we were running around and having fun and driving and competitive, and it's and you wrenching with your dad, that type of thing. And it's like that whole thing. Even Sean, is like Todd mentioned the girls that were there. I mean, I think it was one of Sean's girls was in the A main of the sprint car thing. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, just to see the whole family thing. I mean, it wasn't just like a dad there, or it wasn't just a kid there. I mean, it was, the kid was there, the mom was there, the dad was there, the family came down, everybody was there. I mean, that to us means more than anything, because it's like that family atmosphere, just make it an event, and that kind of makes it the event, instead of it's just something we go do, it's you brought them all together,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then there was the other guy, Richard, the older gentleman that was pitting next to Steve. You know what I'm talking about, Brent?
Yeah.
The older gentleman. I don't know how old he is, but he's up there in age.
Yeah.
Me and that guy were in a qualifier together, and I could not shake that guy. And I would say I'm pretty good at driving, right? I'm like, and afterwards he just shook my hand. He goes, "That was so fun. Thank you for racing clean." It's like if you got me on the inside, I'd give him a little room, and then vice versa. But like, it's all ages, from 10-year-olds to, I don't know, that guy must have been, he's in his 70s easily, having fun, putting a smile on his face,
Yeah.
And
that guy's been racing for a long time. I mean, he's been racing a long time. So, and that's the thing. Like, to see people come off the stand, they're laughing, they're having fun. I mean, that right then, that makes it all worth it. It makes all the hard work. It's like, that's exactly what we want,
Yeah, it's the same for us track owners. The car, it just manifests that feeling of, we're just here to have fun.
Yeah,
we're here for fellowship. We're here for fun. We're here for competition. We spent time getting the cars ready, charging our batteries, and driving to the track. Yeah, we're here to race. We'd love to win, but it's just not that intensity sometimes that you see in other forms. So,
exactly, a little more laid back.
Yeah.
Getting the kids into it too. Kind of to touch on that too is, I know a couple tracks, and I know Dusty Smith down in Florida had done a kids camp in the summertime. I think he did it. I don't know if he did it last year, but a couple of years before that and stuff. And it was pretty successful. And that's something that me and Todd have talked about. Like, there again, like, what else can we do to get kids into this? And it's something we're going to kind of try to work on with some of the dealers and some of the tracks and stuff. It's like, hey, if you guys want to do some of this kind of stuff, let us know. I mean, we'll try to help out, see what we can do. Sure. To make that, because we helped Dusty out when he did that, and it's just like, because I think he brought the kids in, and one day they took the cars all apart, and then they put them, did this and put them together, and then they painted the bodies, and it was like a whole week long, I think it was, for that deal. And, just stuff like that to get kids back in it. Because it's just, we got to get the kids back in this to keep this growing, because that's, we're all getting older, we can't do it forever. Right. So, like, getting those kids to come up, and, we need somebody to take our place, even though they do it a little bit, and then we can't beat them, then they're beating us. But
right. Yeah.
But that's that's even better. That's even better yet. I mean, just to see those kids. I mean, there was a couple kids in Denver over the years. They would do that. Like, they were banging off the walls, and they kept trying at it. And 6 months later, it's like they're winning the A main. You're like, whoa, where did this kid come from? Right. But it's like just nurturing that whole thing to get those kids into it is, that means a lot to us for sure. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
Well, guys, I could talk to you guys like for hours.
Oh yeah. Well, let's do it again.
Absolutely. Well, hey, if you give that invitation, and I'm going to be calling.
and doing this podcast. We got to thank you, Dave. I mean, for the, doing these podcasts and really pushing the 1RC stuff. I mean, it's been a huge, huge help, and there's a lot of people that watch it. So, I mean, so we really appreciate everything, you do with the podcast and your racing and all the track promotion stuff. I mean, it's fantastic. So.
Yeah, that blows me away. That's so humbling. I would hope people watching this show not only learn about the 1RC cars, learn how they could get into this hobby, but this is also a business lesson. Anybody thinking of launching a company, big, small, whatever, listen to what these gentlemen have talked about tonight.
Yeah.
Number one, the priorities. You have your priorities in alignment that you're already succeeding, but you're going to continue to succeed. But after people will watch this and hear what you have to say, Brent, and you have to say, Todd, how can you not listen to you two guys and say, I want them to succeed? I want them to succeed because this is a business that should, because they're doing the things right and they're doing it for the right reasons, and it's not all about money. Sure, you got to make money, you got to keep the lights.
Yeah,
you're in business. It's a business.
It's a business. You got to make money. That's what makes the world go round and what makes 1RC go round. But that's not at the top of the list. It's taking care of the customer. I mean, that's one thing. Just touching on that a little bit too is one thing we do hear from a lot of people is how fast we get back customer service wise. Everything's on email. Everything's messaging, that type of stuff. But when we get a message, it's like we try to fire right back, like get back to people right away. And even our shipping, we try to get that stuff out right away. We don't delay it, that type of stuff. Because, there again, back to the values. Like for me, when I order something, I don't want to wait for it. So I look at it as, our customer don't want to wait for it either. So let's get that stuff out the door right away, And when I send an email off, I mean, I don't know how many times I've responded to an email right away or even late at night on holidays, Christmas Day, somebody will, hey, I got a question about this. Send it back and they'll be like, geez, I didn't think I was going to get an answer back for 2 or 3 days. Well, if I'm not doing anything, sure, I'll respond back, because it's like, I don't like waiting for answers either, so it's just, and there again, it's that whole like commitment to like, just bringing it all into the fold, just if they're supporting us, we want to support them, and that's that core value, that core foundation that, if you lose that, you're in trouble.
At the end of the day, I teach my kids this: treat people how you want to be treated.
Yep.
Right. You could say, that's in the Bible. But it's just it's a law in our house. It's how I live my life. It's like I'm never going to treat anybody disrespectful. Even if somebody disrespects me, I'm just going to walk away, just not deal with it. And I think that's how we run the business. It's like, hey, if somebody has a problem with something, hey, do some quick troubleshooting. Here's some tips. Nope, that still didn't do it. Okay, we'll send you that part out, But they got to do a little bit of homework for it, right? Not just, okay, well, sorry you're here having a problem. We're just going to send you something out. It's just really taking care of the customer, listening to them, nurturing that relationship, just how we would want it when we're buying something. Because, right, at the end of the day, we all work our butts off to do everything we do, right? And then you want something that you can be a part of and that you have that relationship. And it's almost like I use this word with Brent, like you're almost intimate with the customer in a way, right? Because you're wanting them because they spent their hard-earned money to get this product and you want to make sure that they're taken care of within reason.
I cannot thank you guys enough, both you, Brent, and Todd, for doing this tonight. I'm just super excited to get it edited up and get it out on social media and out all over all over the internet. It's going to be great. So
well, let's do it again sometime. I mean, it's can't do it every week probably, but
oh no, darn it.
But and to your point too, I mean, me and Todd kind of talked about this, but you were asking like, what's next? Well, you know what? Customers, track owners, promoters, all that. Send us emails. What do you guys want to see next? Like we're there's a lot of cars out there. We got a lot of cars, so it's like what does everybody want to see next? Type thing. I mean, when we get those emails, believe us, they don't just get filed away or I'm not listening to that person. We read every single email.
Anybody who's watching the show tonight, first of all, we want to thank thanks folks for tuning in and watching the show. You will not be disappointed. I'm not really cutting anything out of this. I mean, this is good stuff. So everybody enjoy. We know that you're going to learn. We got to thank our great sponsors, Carpies, Papa Willie's. Thanks for your support of the show, so we can do this, so we can have people on the show like Brent and Todd. So everybody have a great night, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the RC Underground Radio Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your fellow racers about the show. Tune in again next week for more RC content.